Okay guys, welcome to the history of etching. Personally, I found this topic very interesting and hopefully everyone else will too. So here are the questions that I'm going to be answering today. What is etching? Basic information like how do you do it, what is it? And then we will move into how etching came about and at what time it was invented. I will definitely be discussing why etching is important not only to the art world but also to printmaking. And I will give you 3 famous etching artists. Okay, so what is etching? Well, after watching and reading an explanation from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where the photos I have here have come from, I learned how the process works. So there's a piece of metal, and it could be copper, iron, or zinc, and then marks and lines are indented into the metal while layering like an acid-resistant varnish over it. This varnish is also referred to as the ground, which allows for the ink to stay on the indented parts of the metal plate. So once the design is drawn from the etching needle onto the metal, it takes a bath in some acid. And this is where the ground comes in handy, since it is acid resistant. The acid will only eat at the metal parts where you created the lines. So this helps the ink adhere to those specific spots. So here are just some basic tools that you need for etching. This is the ground that they're painting on top of the metal. This is copper. Copper is probably the best to use because it's very malleable. Here is the blunt needle that they're using. So they just go right on top of the ground and they etch in whatever design they want. Okay, and then right over here we have the acid bath. You just dump it in there. So I also learned that the longer it stays in the acid, the darker your lines will be on the final piece of paper that will have your design. So after the acid bath, you just wipe the metal plate with some solvent. Just easy as that. Now they get ready to ink. So right here, this is the inking process. So basically they flood the metal with ink, basically similar to how we do with our screens in printmaking. So if you watch right here, here's the ink being flooded, and then they just carefully take a cloth and wipe off the rest of the ink. So the ink will only be in the lines that they placed in the plate. So then it gets ready to go through the press. So the paper is placed over the plate. It's important to have something soft over it, like felt, so that when it goes through the roller, the pressure won't completely flatten or warp or damage the plate. And then after it takes a trip in there, you just take everything off of it, and there you have a print. It's really that easy. And that is the final product that they got. I think it's interesting how the actual lines of the plate came out as well. I think it's interesting. I think some people will have trouble oh, why is that there? That shouldn't be there. I think it's cute because it frames the design. Okay. Next question. When and where did etching originate? So I was not expecting this answer, but based on my research, it was in Germany in approximately the 1500s. At the time, etchers used iron plates, but it wasn't the best material because we all know that iron rusts and it's much harder of a metal, which would take more strength to actually etch into. Anyway, etching quickly made its way over to France and Italy, and it was a hit or miss type of medium. Some printmakers really preferred this process, and some tried it only to find out that they didn't really like it so much, and they went back to their own methods, which is fine. That's what we all do as artists. Let's keep going. Why is etching significant to printmaking? Well, it's not only important to art in general, but especially to printmaking because etching is one of the oldest methods of printmaking. Like without etching, printmaking probably would not have developed in the same way or at the same speed that it has. And everyone knows that even the tiniest change in a timeline could end up changing the entire future. So without etching, who knows what would have happened. This could have changed major historical events for all that we know, but luckily the process lent a hand to creating the different ways that we use printmaking for today. So I just keep imagining how our screens and distributing the ink the way we do is very much the same for etching, and that's where it came from. Okay, I am going to sincerely apologize because I have some famous etchers here that I want to talk about, but I am going to royally screw up these names, so let's just pretend that the way I'm saying them is actually correct. I'm going to talk about 3 because my magic number is 3. I feel like that's enough. So we have Rembrandt van Rijn. Basically everyone just knows him as Rembrandt. We have Albrecht Dürer. I hope that's how you say his name. And we also have Francisco Goya. That one wasn't too hard. Alright, so I'm going to start off with Rembrandt. Based on the research that I did, the popular opinion is that his etchings are more important than his paintings. Rembrandt painted portraits to sustain himself financially, but for fun and as a hobby, he wanted to make etchings. And he wanted to show everybody the potential of what etching could give you in art. He really liked to be experimental and creative, which I am the same way. I'm always trying out different mediums because I feel like it's really fun. Interesting fact, he carried with him a copper plate. So like most of us artists have a sketchbook with us. He had a copper plate. He thought it would help himself to create freely without like academic restraints and stuff like that. He was a great master in the Baroque age. It was a time known for like a dramatic style of light and shadow. He remains one of history's most innovative and influential original printmakers, and he's created more than 300 etchings in his lifetime. And I have some of his etchings right. Here are some self-portraits. That's what these are. I apologize for the quality. Like, I feel like this one's a little bit hard to see. But if you just imagine how many lines and like the time that he really took to put detail into his etchings, like, and especially look at the source of light in this one. the value range in this etching is really pretty. It's really complex. The texture in this one I really enjoy. Okay. So next up we have Dürer. And here he is. He was a German artist of the Renaissance. His greatest artistic impact is said to be in the printmaking realm. He helped to revolutionize printmaking by evolving it into something independent. He's known for many self-portraits in all different types of mediums. And here are his etchings. So, much like Rembrandt, these all have immense detail in them. Range of values are pretty good between these two. I mean, it's not bad in this one, it's just more dramatic, especially in this one, which I really like. And yeah, those are Dürer's etchings. Okay, now we move on to Francisco Goya, which is my favorite of the three. So, personally, I really love his work because they have such a dark sense of storytelling to them, and I really appreciate that. Goya wasn't afraid to put his opinions into his artwork, which makes me respect him a whole lot more. He created around 300 prints, and here are some of his etchings. I love how graphic they all are. Look at the texture in this one. It's really nice. I love how you just look at this figure and you just get this sense of darkness, which I like. But that seems to be a recurring theme in most of his stuff. But apparently, while he was around, he liked to put his own ideas into his artworks, whether it be political opinions or like superstitious opinions. Like he didn't really believe in superstitions and stuff like that, so he would make art revolving around those ideas. A lot, definitely a lot, politically as well. Goya is from Spain. I just thought that was funny because the name Goya. Okay, I'm gonna stop rambling now. So, this is just a slide reminding everyone of what I talked about. So I told you what etching is and how you do it. Told you that it began around the 1500s in Germany and why it's important to printmaking especially. And I gave you 3 famous artists who used etching. Now, going back to these artists, each of these guys are so important to printmaking as a whole because they made beautiful artworks with etching that are still famous today. And the only way for something to keep evolving is for it to be continuously used and shared with the rest of the world. And that's exactly what they did. Okay, so overall, I really enjoyed researching etching. I was very inspired by Goya, and I will definitely be researching him on my own time. I hope everyone else found this just as interesting as I did. And yeah, thank you for listening to my presentation about etching. And here are just some references that I used.